The next step is I'm going to use color pencils, but they are special color pencils you're going to see right here. They say watercolor on them. So I'm going to color this like I would normally. I'm going to think about my main color. I want to go with green, maybe adding some highlights near the top with yellow, creating like a gradient, maybe some shadows and some shading with some blue. And I'm going to go ahead and color those with my colored pencils. Now comes the fun part. Because this is watercolor, when you add water, which is why my cat is sitting here on my paper because he loves when I get the water out, I'm just going to take my brush, and these colored pencils turn into watercolor paint, which makes them really easy to blend. So I'm just using the tip of my brush so that I can kind of stay in those edges that I made, that nice graffiti lettering that I did. And I'm going to smooth out the colors that I made, and I can blend that highlight of the yellow. Get a nice light bright green there. And you can see Nugget's keeping me company. And I'm only really getting a little bit more water on my brush. I don't have to worry about blending the colors because it's going to happen right there, like I already created the blend with my colored pencil. So I'm just smoothing it out, and you just need just enough water to kind of smooth everything out. You don't want big puddles. So I'm only dipping a little, kind of not tapping, just rubbing the edge of my brush just to get that extra water off. Just kind of smoothing it out. And that kind of smooths out the brush strokes, or the, not brush strokes, but the marks from our colored pencil. And it really kind of brightens the colors as well. I feel like it makes them more vibrant. I'm not just kind of going over the whole thing. I'm being really careful about staying inside the edges, so I kind of go around the edges of the shapes. And then I can kind of, like that with my brush, and smooth it out. And once the paper's wet, you can kind of go back in and add more color too. So if I want that a little bit darker, I can go back in and add some more, and it kind of dissolves on the wet paper, which is kind of fun too. I have a white one. I'm going to see what happens here. I'll make a nice highlight, if that'll work or not. I don't feel like it really is doing anything. You can draw on the wet paper and then go back in and add a little bit more water if you want to smooth it out. I don't know if you can see how my paper's kind of buckling as it gets wet. So I'm going to be careful how much water I use. So this is the first time we've used watercolor pencils. So I think that'll work really nicely for this project. Now I'm going to add a drop shadow to each letter. I want to make sure that I add it to the same side on each letter so that it makes sense when you look at it. So I'm shading on the bottom of my letter to the right side. And I also want to think about how thick I make this kind of like drop shadow so that I have the same kind of sense of thickness for each letter. A background outline with a few more details that went along with my garden theme. I have the sun peeking off to the left. If you look carefully, I have a little worm and a ladybug and a butterfly. To the right, I was creating kind of the soil on the ground. And if you look carefully, you can see where my dog chewed it up and I had to tape it back together. My dog literally ate my homework.